Some losses arrive without sound. A folded notice on a table. A child asleep in the next room. A man learning how much quiet can hurt. This is a story about what remains when everything is taken and how safety, once offered gently, can become home again. Stay with it. Let the quiet do the work. The paper had been there since morning. It lay flat at the far end of the kitchen table, held in place by nothing more than its own weight. No envelope, no crease, just white against the dull brown surface, its edges perfectly aligned, as if it had chosen that spot deliberately. He noticed it every time he passed the table, once while rinsing a mug, once while checking the time on the stove clock, once while tying his son's shoes near the door. Each time, he let his eyes touch it only briefly, the way a person looks at something sharp. The apartment was quiet in the way early mornings often were quiet before the city decided what it wanted. The heater hummed faintly. A truck passed outside. Somewhere upstairs, water pipes rattled. Ordinary sounds, stitched together into a life that had become very careful. He packed lunch with practice motions. 2 slices of bread. Peanut butter spread thin enough to last the week. Apple cut into quarters. He wrapped everything slowly, pressing the plastic flat so it wouldn't come loose in his son's bag. "Daddy." The voice came from the bedroom, still soft with sleep. "I'm here," he said, not raising his voice. His son appeared in the doorway, rubbing one eye, the other already open and watching. He was small for his age, but not fragile. Just quiet, observant in a way that made adults measure their movements around him. They sat together at the table, side by side, not facing each other. The paper stayed where it was, just beyond the reach of their elbows. His son swung his legs under the chair, heels brushing the metal rung again and again. "You're late today?" the boy asked. "Just a little," he said. "We'll still make it." The boy nodded, accepting the answer without question. He took his cereal slowly, spoon clinking against the bowl, eyes drifting around the room. When his gaze landed on the paper, it lingered. "What's that?" he asked. The man paused, just long enough to be noticeable. "Something for work," he said. It wasn't true, but it wasn't entirely false either. Work lately had come to mean more than hours and pay. The boy returned to his cereal. He always did. He trusted the world to be explained when it needed to be. After breakfast, shoes were put on. Jacket zipped. Backpack checked twice. The routine was steady, almost gentle. It had to be. Routine was what kept the days from collapsing inward. At the door, his son hugged him the way he always did. Quick, firm, then gone. No lingering, no drama. Just contact, then release. "I'll see you after," the boy said. "I'll be there," he answered. The door closed. The lock clicked. The apartment exhaled. Only then did he sit down at the table. He didn't pick up the paper right away. He placed both hands flat on the surface, palms down, feeling the faint grooves in the wood. A ring stain from a mug that had never fully come out, a small scratch from when the chair leg had slipped. When he finally lifted the paper, it felt thinner than he expected. The words were precise. Dates, case numbers, language stripped of feeling. It spoke of custody and review and compliance, all arranged into neat paragraphs that left no room for argument or appeal, only acknowledgement. He read it once, then again. There was no anger in him, no shock, just a quiet tightening in his chest, like a muscle preparing to hold something heavy for a long time. They hadn't taken his son, not yet, but they had taken something else. The margin, the room to breathe, the illusion that things could stay as they were if he kept his head down and worked hard enough. He folded the paper carefully and set it back where it had been. The rest of the day moved forward because it had to. He went to work. He kept his voice even. He did what was asked of him. He watched the clock without staring at it. When evening came, he stood outside the school gate, hands in his pockets, waiting. Parents talked around him, voices overlapping. He nodded when spoken to, smiled when necessary. His son ran to him, backpack bouncing, face open in a way that made the rest of the world recede. They walked home together. They talked about spelling words and a loose tooth in a drawing that hadn't turned out right. The man listened the way he always did, with his whole attention. Dinner was simple. Dishes washed, homework done, bathwater tested twice before his son stepped in. At bedtime, the boy asked for one more story. Just a short one. The man sat on the edge of the bed and read slowly, letting the words stretch. When the boy's breathing evened out, he stayed there a while longer, watching the rise and fall of his chest. Back in the kitchen, the paper waited. He turned off the light, leaving the room in shadow. Tomorrow would come. Decisions would be made. He would find a way to carry what had been placed in front of him. For now, the table remained quiet. The building did not announce itself. There was no sign large enough to justify its presence on that street, only a narrow brass plate beside the door with lettering so clean it felt deliberate. The man stood across from it for a moment longer than necessary, adjusting his jacket even though it was already straight. His son held his hand, fingers warm, grip steady. "Is this the place?" the boy asked. "Yes," he said. "We'll just be a minute." Inside, the air was different. Not warmer, not colder, simply quieter. The kind of quiet that came from design rather than absence. The floor absorbed sound. Voices did not echo. Even footsteps seemed to ask permission before moving forward. A woman at the front desk looked up. Her smile was polite, practiced, and brief. "Name?" He gave it. She checked something on her screen, then paused. "One moment," she said, already standing. They waited. His son leaned against his leg, looking around. The man kept his eyes forward. He had been in places like this before, offices where everything was measured, where people spoke carefully, where time felt expensive. The woman returned. "Someone will see you shortly." They were led down a hallway lined with framed photographs. Buildings, skylines, projects that spoke of scale and permanence. The man did not stop to look closely. He focused on keeping pace, on not appearing lost. The room they entered was large without being imposing. One long table, a few chairs, windows that looked out over the city, though the view felt secondary, almost restrained. They sat. Minutes passed. His son swung his legs gently beneath the chair, heels brushing the wood. The man rested his hands on his knees, spine straight, breath even. When the door opened again, he stood instinctively. The woman who entered did not hurry. She was tall, composed, dressed in a way that suggested control rather than display. Nothing about her movement was sharp. She crossed the room as if she already knew where everything belonged. "I'm sorry to keep you waiting," she said, her voice low and even. "I was finishing something." "It's all right," he replied. Her eyes moved briefly to the child, not lingering, not dismissing, just noticing. "Please," she said, gesturing. "Sit." They did. She did not begin with questions. She picked up a folder, opened it, then closed it again without reading. "I understand you're here because of a housing review," she said. "Yes." "And there's a time constraint." He nodded. "Yes." She folded her hands. "I don't need details right now. I've read enough to know the outline." There was no judgment in her tone, no pity, just clarity. The boy shifted in his seat. "Do you have water?" he asked, not rudely, just honestly. The woman looked at him. "I do," she said. "Would you like some?" He nodded. She stood, poured water herself, and placed the glass carefully in front of him, not as a gesture, as a given. "Thank you," the boy said. "You're welcome." The man noticed then how the room had changed, not dramatically, just enough to register. She returned to her seat. "I can't promise outcomes," she said, "but I can offer something interim." He waited. "There's a property I oversee," she continued. "Not in use at the moment. It's maintained. Quiet. Suitable." His breath slowed. "It would be temporary," she added. "Clear terms. No obligation beyond care and respect for the space." He did not answer right away. "It's not charity," she said, as if reading the pause. "It's practical. Stability matters, especially for children." The boy looked at his father, then back at her. "Would it be near my school?" he asked. She smiled, just slightly. "Yes," she said. close enough to walk. The man felt something settle in his chest. Not relief. Not yet. Something more careful. I don't want to overstep, he said. And I don't want special treatment. She inclined her head. Then don't take it as either, she said. Take it as a door held open. You decide whether to step through. There was no pressure in her gaze, no expectation. He looked at his son. The boy's shoulders were relaxed. His hands rested easily on the table. Okay, the man said. She nodded once. Good. They stood. Papers were signed. Instructions were given, concise and clear. Keys were placed on the table, their weight unmistakable. As they left, the woman walked them to the door herself. Take your time settling in, she said. There's no rush. Thank you, he said. She met his eyes. You're welcome. Outside, the city noise returned. Cars, voices, movement. The boy squeezed his hand. She was nice, he said. Yes, the man replied. They walked on, keys heavy in his pocket, the shape of a new possibility pressing quietly against his leg. The house did not feel empty. That was the first thing he noticed when he unlocked the door. Not furnished warmth, not personality, just a sense that the space was used to holding itself together. The air was clean, still, as if nothing inside it rushed. His son stepped in first, backpack still on, eyes moving carefully from wall to wall. It's big, the boy said, not loudly. Yes, the man answered, but we'll stay where it makes sense. They closed the door behind them. The sound was solid, reassuring, the kind of sound that stayed where it landed. The entryway opened into a modest living room, neutral colors. A couch covered in fabric, meant to last rather than impress. Lamps placed for use, not effect. There were no photographs, no marks of ownership, just space. The boy walked slowly, touching nothing at first. Then he set his backpack down with a soft thud and sat on the floor. Can I sit here? He asked. Of course. The man moved through the house methodically. Kitchen, bathroom, 2 bedrooms. Everything worked. Everything were tanned. There were dishes in the cabinets, towels folded with care, a small stack of spare blankets in the hall closet. He opened a window. The street outside was quiet, not silent, but settled. Trees lined the sidewalk. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked once, then stopped. Dinner that night was simple. They ordered food from a place within walking distance, ate it at the kitchen counter because the table felt too large for 2 people just yet. The boy talked more than usual. About school, about a friend who had moved away, about the way the stairs in the new house didn't creak. They're quiet, he said, testing them with his foot. Yes, the man said, they are. After dinner they unpacked only what they needed. Clothes folded into drawers. Toothbrushes placed side by side in the bathroom cup. The boy chose the smaller bedroom without discussion. This one, he said. It's closer. Closer to what? To you, the boy replied, already pulling the blanket back. The man nodded. He did not trust his voice. At bedtime, the boy lay still longer than usual, eyes open, hands folded over his stomach. Will we stay here? He asked. For now, the man said, as long as we need. The boy considered this, then nodded. Okay. The house grew quiet in layers. Lights turned off one by one. The refrigerator hummed. The heater clicked on, then off. The man sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug he hadn't realized he poured. The silence did not press in. It simply stayed. He thought of the woman briefly, not her wealth, not her position, but the way she had poured water herself, the way she had spoken without urgency, the way she had made space without stepping into it. In the days that followed, routine returned. Mornings were unhurried. They walked to school together, counting cracks in the sidewalk. Afternoons ended with homework at the kitchen counter, the boy humming quietly as he wrote. The woman did not appear. There were no messages beyond a single note left on the counter the second morning, written neatly on a small card. Let me know if anything is missing. Nothing was. At night, the house remained steady. No unexpected sounds, no raised voices from neighboring walls. The boy slept through without waking. One evening, as the man washed dishes, His son leaned against the counter. "It's quiet here," the boy said again. "Yes, I like that." "So do I." The words felt heavier than they should have, not with fear, with relief. Later, lying in bed, the man stared at the ceiling, listening. To the heater. To his own breathing. To the absence of tension he had grown used to carrying. This place did not ask for anything yet. It simply held them. Time did not announce itself as change. It moved quietly through mornings and evenings, through meals prepared without thought, through shoes placed in the same spot by the door. Days layered themselves one over another until the house no longer felt temporary. It felt used, not owned, just lived in. The boy adjusted first. He began leaving his backpack by the wall without being reminded. He stopped asking if they would have to leave soon. His drawings, once folded carefully into his bag, started appearing on the refrigerator, held up by plain magnets already there. The man noticed these things without comment. He had learned that pointing out comfort sometimes made it fragile. They settled into patterns. Morning walks to school. Evenings spent at the kitchen counter. Weekends marked by laundry and quiet errands. Nothing remarkable. Everything essential. The woman entered their lives the way she had offered the house without disruption. She came one evening just before dinner. Her arrival announced only by the sound of the front door opening with a key he had forgotten she possessed. He stood instinctively, dish towel still in his hand. "I should have called," she said, already stepping back slightly. "I can come another time." "No," he said. "It's fine." She nodded and stepped inside. She did not look around as if inspecting. She simply removed her coat and set it over the back of a chair. The boy appeared in the doorway, curious but calm. "Hello," she said to him. "Hi," he replied. She crouched slightly, enough to meet his eye without bending the room around him. "I wanted to check that everything's working as it should." "It is," the boy said. "The stairs are quiet." She smiled, a small one. "I'm glad." They ate together that night, not as an event, but because it made sense. The man cooked what he had planned anyway. She accepted the plate offered to her without comment, without praise. Conversation stayed simple. School schedules, weather, a leak in the sink that she made a note of, then waved away his apology. "This is what houses do," she said. "They ask for attention." After that, her presence became occasional, predictable, always brief, always purposeful. She never stayed late, never crossed a boundary he hadn't first opened. The boy grew comfortable around her in stages, first by speaking when spoken to, then by asking questions, finally by showing her things. One afternoon she arrived while the man was still at work. He found her later sitting at the table with his son, a worksheet between them. "She's good at spelling," the boy said when he walked in. "She's practiced," the woman replied, standing immediately. "You didn't have to," he began. "I know," she said, "but I had time." He watched as she gathered her things, movements precise, unhurried. She did not assume dinner, did not assume welcome beyond what had been given. After she left, the boy returned to his work without prompting. "She listens," he said quietly. "Yes," the man agreed. In the evenings, after his son slept, the man sometimes sat alone in the living room, lights dimmed, thinking of nothing in particular. The house held his silence without judgment. He began to notice small things about her. Not her status, not her authority, but her restraint. The way she asked before sitting. The way she never spoke about his past or her own. What grew between them did not feel like expectation. It felt like trust taking shape slowly, carefully, in the spaces where nothing was demanded. Winter arrived without ceremony. The mornings cooled. The light shifted. Jackets moved from the back of chairs to their proper place by the door. The boy's shoes grew heavier, his step slower as he learned how to move with layers. The woman adjusted to the season the way she did everything else, quietly. She began arriving with small, practical additions. Extra gloves left in the hall drawer, a thicker blanket folded over the arm of the couch. She never mentioned them. They simply appeared. The man noticed, always after the fact. One evening, the three of them sat in the living room while the boy worked on a puzzle on the floor. The woman sat cross-legged on the rug, sleeves pushed up, helping only when asked. The man watched from the couch, a book open but unread. At some point, the boy leaned back against her leg without looking. She stilled, then rested her hand lightly on his shoulder. Nothing more. He did not move away. The moment passed without comment. Later, as she prepared to leave, she paused near the door. "He's doing well," she said. "Yes," the man replied. She hesitated, then added, "So are you." He nodded once. He did not argue. There were no confessions, no late-night conversations that reached for meaning. Instead, there were gestures, the way she remembered the boy's schedule, the way the man began setting out a third mug without thinking, then catching himself and leaving it there anyway. One evening, the power went out. The house fell into darkness so complete it startled the boy, who called out from his room. The man was there before the second syllable left his mouth. "It's okay," he said, "just the power." They sat together on the bed with a flashlight. The boy's breathing slowed. Downstairs, the woman lit candles she had brought earlier that week, their soft glow reaching the hallway. She did not intrude. She waited. When the lights returned, the house resumed its rhythm without fuss. The man found himself standing at the sink later, washing cups he hadn't used, listening to the familiar sounds of water and movement. He felt the weight of something unspoken between them. Not heavy, not urgent. Simply present. He did not know what it would become, only that it was steady. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. It was thinner than the first one, less formal in appearance but heavier in what it implied. The man opened it at the kitchen counter while his son worked on homework nearby, the scratch of pencil steady and unbothered. He read it once, then folded it and placed it beneath the fruit bowl. The house did not change. The refrigerator hummed. The clock above the stove kept time. Outside, a car door closed. Life continued at its usual pace, indifferent to paperwork. But something in him tightened. The review date had been moved up. Not by much. Enough to matter. Enough to remove the illusion that patience alone would solve things. That evening, after his son had gone to bed, he stood in the doorway of the woman's study. The light was on. She was seated at her desk, sleeves rolled up, reading something on a tablet. "I need to talk to you," he said. She looked up immediately. "Of course." He did not sit. He remained where he was, hands resting at his sides. "There's been an update," he said, "with the court." She listened without interruption as he explained. He kept his voice measured, factual. No speculation. No request. Just information placed carefully between them. When he finished, she nodded once. "Thank you for telling me," she said. "I don't want this to affect you," he continued, "or the house. Or." She raised her hand gently, not to stop him, but to slow him. "We can talk about impact later," she said. "Right now, tell me what you need." He hesitated. "That's the problem," he said. "I don't know." She studied him, not clinically, but with attention. "You're not a complication," she said quietly. He shook his head. "You don't know what this looks like from the outside." "I do," she replied. "Better than you think." Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable, not resolved. Later that night, he lay awake listening to the house. The familiar sounds were still there, but they felt different now, more fragile, as if they depended on choices not yet made. In the days that followed, he began to pull back. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. He declined her offers to help with school pickups. He shortened conversations. He returned to his room earlier in the evenings. The boy noticed first. "Did I do something?" he asked one night, standing in the hallway. "No," the man said immediately. "Never." "Then why are you quiet?" The man knelt, placing his hands on his son's shoulders. "I'm just thinking," he said. "About leaving?" the boy asked. The word landed softly. "Precisely." The man did not answer right away. "I'm thinking about staying," he said instead. The boy nodded, accepting the answer without understanding it fully. He leaned forward, resting his forehead briefly against his father's chest, then stepped back. Downstairs, the woman watched the hallway light turn off. She did not follow. She did not ask. But she understood the shape of retreat when she saw it. The woman waited 3 days. not because she was unsure, but because she understood timing. Pressure had its uses in boardrooms and negotiations. In private life, it only distorted what was already fragile. On the fourth evening, she knocked softly on his door. "May I come in?" she asked. "Yes." She sat in the chair by the window, not on the bed. The distance felt intentional, respectful. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what you told me." He nodded. He did not speak. "There are ways to make the review easier," she continued. "Legal support, documentation, stability statements, all above board." He looked at her then. "I don't want to win because of you." She did not flinch. "You wouldn't be," she said. "You'd be prepared. That's different." He turned his gaze back to the window. Outside, the streetlight cast a steady glow, unbothered by the conversation inside. "I can't have him thinking we're safe because someone else decided we were," he said. "I need it to be real." She considered this. "Safety is always decided by someone," she said. "The question is whether they choose it carefully." He exhaled slowly. "There's something else," he said. She waited. "If this goes badly," he said, "I don't want him tied to uncertainty. I don't want him thinking this place was a promise." The words cost him something. They were shaped by fear, not doubt. She stood. "I won't let that happen," she said. "Not to him." He turned fully now. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of." Silence followed. It stretched, then softened. The next morning, the boy's teacher requested a meeting. Nothing alarming, just a check-in. The woman offered to attend. "No," the man said quickly. "I'll go." She nodded. "All right." At the meeting, the teacher spoke of progress, of focus, of calm. "He seems settled," she said, "like he knows where he belongs." The man thanked her and left, the words echoing longer than they should have. That night, he sat at the kitchen table long after his son slept. The house held him the way it always had, patient, quiet. He realized then that leaving would not protect his son from loss. It would only teach him how to disappear. Upstairs, the woman closed her laptop and waited. She did not rehearse arguments. She trusted the stillness to do what urgency could not. When he knocked on her door, it was gentle. "I don't want to leave," he said. She nodded. "Then don't." He swallowed. "But I need to stay honestly." "You will," she said. Down the hall the boy slept, breathing slow and even, unaware that the shape of his world had just steadied. The decision did not arrive as relief. It arrived as clarity. The man woke the next morning before his alarm, the house still wrapped in its early quiet. He lay still for a moment, listening not for threats or uncertainty, but for what was already there. The low hum of heat through the vents, the distant sound of traffic beginning its day. Upstairs, his son's steady breathing. Nothing felt borrowed. At breakfast, he packed lunch the way he always did. The same careful portions, the same folded napkin. But when he placed the bag beside his son's backpack, his hand did not hesitate. The woman joined them briefly in the kitchen, coat already on. She paused when she saw the 3 place settings. "I wasn't sure," she said. "It made sense," he replied. She accepted the coffee he poured without comment. They stood together in the narrow space, not touching, not avoiding it either. The boy watched them both, spoon idle in his bowl. "Are you coming later?" the boy asked her. "Yes," she said, "if that's all right." He nodded. "Okay." That afternoon, the man attended the legal appointment he had been postponing. He went alone. He brought documents carefully arranged in a folder he had bought that morning. He asked questions. He listened. He took notes. He did not mention her name. When he returned, the house was filled with the quiet sounds of normal life. The woman sat at the table with his son, reviewing homework. She looked up as he entered, reading his expression without searching it. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "It will take time." She nodded. "Time is manageable." Later that evening, after the boy had gone to bed, they sat across from each other in the living room. No agenda. No prepared words. "I need you to know something," he said. She waited. I'm staying, he said, but not because I'm protected, because I'm choosing this life. She met his gaze evenly. So am I. He exhaled, a breath he had been holding longer than he realized. I won't ask you to promise anything, he added. I won't ask for certainty. I wouldn't offer it, she said. Only presence. That was enough. In the weeks that followed, choices took shape quietly. She arranged legal support, not as leverage, but as structure. He accepted it without shrinking. Meetings were attended. Forms were filed. Progress moved forward in small, measurable steps. The boy adjusted without ceremony. He stopped asking who would be home in the evenings. He assumed it. One night, as the man tucked him in, the boy asked, "Is she staying?" The man considered the question carefully. "Yes," he said. "She is." The boy nodded, satisfied. "Good." Downstairs, the woman stood at the sink, drying a dish he hadn't asked her to wash. When he joined her, she did not move away. The house absorbed them both. What was chosen did not need to be named. It was already being lived. The decision did not arrive as relief. It arrived as clarity. The man woke the next morning before his alarm, the house still wrapped in its early quiet. He lay still for a moment, listening not for threats or uncertainty, but for what was already there. The low hum of heat through the vents, the distant sound of traffic beginning its day. Upstairs, his son's steady breathing. Nothing felt borrowed. At breakfast, he packed lunch the way he always did. The same careful portions, the same folded napkin. But when he placed the bag beside his son's backpack, his hand did not hesitate. The woman joined them briefly in the kitchen, coat already on. She paused when she saw the three place settings. "I wasn't sure," she said. "It made sense," he replied. She accepted the coffee he poured without comment. They stood together in the narrow space, not touching, not avoiding it either. The boy watched them both, spoon idle in his bowl. "Are you coming later?" the boy asked her. "Yes," she said, "if that's all right." He nodded. "Okay." That afternoon, the man attended the legal appointment he had been postponing. He went alone. He brought documents carefully arranged in a folder he had bought that morning. He asked questions. He listened. He took notes. He did not mention her name. When he returned, the house was filled with the quiet sounds of normal life. The woman sat at the table with his son, reviewing homework. She looked up as he entered, reading his expression without searching it. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "It will take time." She nodded. Time is manageable. Later that evening, after the boy had gone to bed, they sat across from each other in the living room. No agenda, no prepared words. "I need you to know something," he said. She waited. "I'm staying," he said, "but not because I'm protected, because I'm choosing this life." She met his gaze evenly. "So am I." He exhaled, a breath he had been holding longer than he realized. "I won't ask you to promise anything," he added. "I won't ask for certainty. I wouldn't offer it," she said. "Only presence." That was enough. In the weeks that followed, choices took shape quietly. She arranged legal support not as leverage but as structure. He accepted it without shrinking. Meetings were attended. Forms were filed. Progress moved forward in small, measurable steps. The boy adjusted without ceremony. He stopped asking who would be home in the evenings. He assumed it. One night, as the man tucked him in, the boy asked, "Is she staying?" The man considered the question carefully. "Yes," he said. "She is." The boy nodded, satisfied. "Good." Downstairs, the woman stood at the sink, drying a dish he hadn't asked her to wash. When he joined her, she did not move away. The house absorbed them both. What was chosen did not need to be named. The house changed slowly, not in structure, not in appearance, but in the way it anticipated them. Shoes accumulated by the door without being corrected. A bowl for keys appeared on the counter. The third mug no longer felt like an accident. Mornings became predictable. The boy woke on his own most days, already dressed, already certain of where he belonged. He spoke less about leaving and more about planned school projects, weekend errands, small future things that assumed continuity. The woman adjusted her schedule without announcing it. Meetings ended earlier. Calls were taken behind closed doors. She learned the rhythm of the house and did not interrupt it. One evening, she arrived home with groceries and placed them on the counter beside his list. "I added a few things," she said. "I hope that's all right." "It is," he replied. They cooked together without coordination, moving around each other with ease. No conversation was necessary. The boy sat at the table, working on something with careful concentration, occasionally glancing up just to confirm they were still there. After dinner, the man washed dishes while the woman dried them. Their hands brushed once, briefly, and neither of them moved away too quickly. Later, when the boy was asleep, they stood in the hallway outside his room, listening for a moment longer than needed. "He's settled," she said. "Yes." They did not say anything else. The legal process continued, quietly and steadily. No dramatic victories. No sudden reversals. Just progress. Structure. The kind of stability that was built rather than granted. The man learned to accept help without apology. The woman learned to offer it without control. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, the boy sat on the floor, assembling something piece by piece. He paused, looked up at them both, and said, "This is my house." Neither adult corrected him. That night, the man sat at the kitchen table after everyone else had gone to bed, the same table where the paper had once rested, thin and heavy. The surface bore more marks now. Small scratches. A faint ring from a mug set down without a coaster. He did not mind. Upstairs, the house held 3 people at rest. It did not promise anything more than it could give. But what it gave, quiet, safety, presence, was enough.